I bartend in Sacramento and barely get weekends off, so when my friend Zach invited me on a long weekend trip to his cousin's lake house near Lake Shasta, I agreed before he even dropped the Airbnb link. It was supposed to be 6 of us: me, Zach, his girlfriend Lena, her best friend Nia, and a couple I didn't know, Matt and Julia. 4 nights, no plans, just chill vibes, beers, and a break from work. I needed air, and this trip felt like it. We got there Thursday afternoon. The place was nestled in a quiet cove on the northeast edge of the lake. Not totally isolated, but there were no visible neighbors. From the dock, the water looked like glass. The air smelled like pine and burnt charcoal. The cabin itself was old. Creaky floors, hand-me-down furniture, one of those buzzing yellow refrigerators, and a view from the back deck that could make you forget your problems. The first 2 days, exactly what you'd expect. Floating on the lake, terrible playlists, too much grilled food, drinking games, staying up until 2 a.m., talking nonsense around the fire pit. We laughed a lot. Zach told stories he clearly made up. I even teased him the first night when I caught him locking his bedroom door. "What? You scared Bigfoot's gonna join the cuddle session?" I joked. He laughed, but I noticed after that he kept a flashlight by the bed. Then came Saturday. I woke up early and went down to the dock alone. Everyone else was still knocked out. I wanted to dunk my face in the water and sit with a cup of coffee. That's when I noticed the kayak. It was tied loosely to the far side of the dock, faded yellow, the kind you rent at state parks. The thing is, we didn't bring a kayak. It wasn't mentioned in the Airbnb listing either. I figured it might have drifted over or maybe belonged to someone nearby. But the rope was wet, like recently wet, not waterlogged, like it had been floating for hours, fresh. Someone had just stepped out of it. Curious, I pulled it closer. It was scratched up, but looked normal. In the back, it had one of those storage hatches. I opened it, expecting a vest or a wet towel. Instead, I found a photo, a Polaroid, faded edges, damp from the moisture. I held it up and froze. It was a photo of us from across the lake, taken the day before. You could see all 6 of us sitting on the dock, red Solo cups, Zach mid-cannonball, the inflatable flamingo floating in the background. It had been taken from the tree line, without us knowing. I didn't tell anyone right away. I don't know why. Maybe I thought it was a prank. Maybe I didn't want to be the paranoid guy. I slipped it into my hoodie and casually mentioned the kayak at breakfast. Matt thought it belonged to the rental. Lena just shrugged. Zach didn't even look up from the pancakes he was making. That bothered me more than it should have. All day, I found myself glancing out at the dock, watching the trees, listening. I had this creeping feeling in the back of my head, like something was out there, watching us. That night, we made another fire. Zach played his indie folk playlist from a Bluetooth speaker. Everyone was relaxed, except me. At one point, Lena went inside to grab marshmallows. I followed to grab a sweater. As I walked past the kitchen window, I caught movement near the trees. Just a flicker. Someone stepping behind a trunk. I stared for a while, but it was quiet. Still, I said nothing. Around midnight, I slipped away and checked the dock. The kayak was gone. The rope was still there, floating loose in the water. But the kayak, completely gone. No drag marks, no splashing. Just gone. I stood at the end of the dock, staring into the lake. Nothing but moonlight and ripples. I wanted to wake someone up, but what would I even say? So I just didn't. The next morning, I brought it up again. Everyone brushed it off. Maybe a neighbor. Maybe it was part of the rental after all. No one cared, or at least no one acted like they did. That made it worse. Sunday came, and we packed up, cleaned the house, took out the trash. I did one last sweep before we left. Just habit from closing the bar every night. As I slid the back glass door shut, something caught my eye. Taped to the inside of the door was another Polaroid. Same angle, same tree line. But this time, we were sitting around the fire pit. Zach in his hoodie, Lena mid-laugh, Matt holding a beer, and me, looking over my shoulder, directly toward the woods. I peeled it off and put it in my pocket beside the first one. I didn't say a word. I still have both of them. Sometimes when I'm alone, I pull them out and study the background, looking for a face, a shadow, a mistake. It was just a kayak, just a couple of photos, but someone was out there, close enough to see our faces, close enough to tie something to our dock without a sound. And whoever they were, they came back. I'm not the kind of person who jumps at shadows. I work in trauma, real trauma. A level 1 center in Knoxville. Blood, broken bones, seizures, screaming. I've seen it all. When you're constantly surrounded by chaos, your brain develops this weird filter. Unless it's gory, bleeding, or life-threatening, I usually don't flinch. But what happened at that cabin on Norris Lake still sticks to my skin like damp air. It wasn't bloody or loud. It was quiet, creeping, the kind of fear that whispers in your ear when the house goes silent at 3 a.m. It happened right after a brutal run at the hospital. 3 weeks straight, barely any sleep, back injuries, psych patients. One guy tried to punch me for taking his blood pressure. My younger sister Emma had been begging me to take a break. She found a rental online, a simple little cabin just off the lake. Wi-Fi, clean reviews, lake access. I agreed without even looking at the photos. We arrived Friday evening, right before sunset. The cabin was tucked down a gravel road that curved into a thick slope of pine trees. The whole place smelled like moss, wet leaves, and tree bark. We didn't see a single neighbor. The lake shimmered through the trees, perfect and still. The cabin itself was kind of weird, cozy, sure, mid-century furniture, big wraparound porch, floor-to-ceiling windows. But what threw me were the 6 deer heads mounted along the living room walls, glass eyes watching from every corner. Looks like a hunter grandpa's Pinterest board, Emma joked. We dropped our bags in the guest rooms. Mine was across from hers. There was a third door in the hallway between us. It was locked. A note was taped to it. Owner's storage, do not open. Didn't think much of it. We made frozen pizza, poured wine, and sat on the porch until it got too cold. The woods around us were quiet. No bugs, no wind. Like the forest was holding its breath. That night, around 2:30 a.m., I woke up. I couldn't explain it. Just this sudden, sharp sense that something was off. The room was dead still. So still, it made my ears ring. Then I heard it. A sloshing sound, not dripping. More like liquid shifting. Like someone was slowly stirring water with their hand. I figured it had to be the plumbing. Checked the kitchen sink. Nothing. The bathroom. Dry. I even opened the fridge to check the ice maker. Nope. On my way back to bed, I passed that locked room. I paused, hand instinctively brushing the doorknob. There it was again. Slosh. Pause. Slosh. Like something gently dragging a bucket through ankle-deep water. I stood there for a while. Then the sound faded. I went back to bed, telling myself it had to be the wind on the lake, or old pipes, or the cold. The next morning I didn't bring it up, but while we were drinking coffee on the porch, Emma looked over and said, "Hey, weird question. Did you hear water moving last night?" I froze. You did too? I asked. She nodded slowly. Yeah, thought maybe you were in the bath. But then it just stopped. We didn't talk about it after that. Went into town, had lunch, floated on the lake. The water was peaceful, still and warm. A boat passed once every hour. No service, no notifications. For the first time in weeks, I felt okay. That night, we grilled some vegetables, played cards, and both went to bed early. The peace didn't last. Next morning, I was brushing my teeth when I noticed a dark spot near the base of the locked door. I leaned down. It wasn't a shadow, it was water. A slick wet patch had crept out from underneath. I touched it, cold, like it had just appeared. Emma, I called. She shuffled over in pajama pants, yawning, until she saw the water. That wasn't there yesterday, she whispered. I grabbed a towel and tried to stop it from seeping into the hallway carpet. It wasn't a lot, maybe 2 cups of water, but it was disturbing. No rain the night before, no pipes on that side of the house. I called the number on the rental sheet. A guy named Corey answered, sounding half asleep. This is the cabin on Norris Lake, number 214. There's water coming out from under a locked room, marked owner's storage. Long pause. That's not possible, he said. That room's sealed. There's no plumbing inside. Well, I'm standing in front of it, and there's water coming out. He told us not to touch it, not to open it. Said he'd call the owner and get back to us. He never did. A couple of hours passed. The water spread further down the hallway. I double-checked every faucet, every line. Nothing. No leaks. No moisture anywhere else. That's when Emma said, "We're opening it." I hesitated. He told us not to. She just looked at me. You think we're just going to let it flood? Fair point. We grabbed a long metal skewer from the kitchen and started working the latch. It took longer than expected, but eventually it clicked. The door opened, and the smell hit us instantly. Wet, earthy, like the inside of a swamp. The air was freezing, like stepping into a walk-in freezer. Water covered the floor, ankle deep. It wasn't coming from a pipe or leak. It was just there. The walls were dry, no ceiling stains, no vents. It was like the room had been filled by hand. There were only a few things inside. A couple of plastic bins stacked in the corner, a rolled-up rug, 2 metal folding chairs, and a window, wide open. Water was dripping from the sill like something had crawled through it. Emma slowly walked toward it. I scanned the room, and that's when I saw it. A wetsuit, draped over one of the chairs. It wasn't modern. It looked vintage. Thick black material with faded gray stripes, like something a diver or fisherman might have worn in the 60s. It was soaked, covered in green algae and patches of mold, and it smelled like salt water and something older, something dead. Neither of us touched it. We just stood there, staring. There were no footprints, no puddles leading out. The room had been locked from the inside, but something had been in there. And whatever it was, it left that suit behind. We didn't talk much after that. Just packed up in 15 minutes and left. Didn't wait for Corey to call back. Didn't even lock the door. Just dropped the key on the kitchen table and drove straight home. I still think about that wetsuit. The way it looked like someone just stepped out of it and vanished. And the fact that even the owner didn't have an explanation. That thing came through the window. It came in soaking wet. It wasn't supposed to be seen. But we opened the door it was hiding behind. And now I keep wondering, what if it didn't leave? My name's Nate. I'm 35. And when this happened, I had just taken a leave of absence from my job to finally work on a novel I'd been claiming I'd write for years. I'm a lawyer by profession, and I didn't realize how badly the day-to-day grind had worn me down until I stepped away. It was my partner Eli who suggested we get away somewhere remote. He found a quiet lake house near Grand Lake, Colorado. Because it was off-season, the rates were cheaper and there were barely any tourists. All we were looking for was quiet, something to help us reset. We arrived in mid-October, right when the leaves started turning dry and the air hinted at the coming snow. The cabin was tucked into a little hollow in the woods, surrounded by tall pines, and set back off a winding gravel road. No other houses in sight, just trees, sky, and water. It was the kind of place that felt too peaceful to be real. Before we even unlocked the door, we noticed it. Off to the side of the porch was a tall, neat stack of freshly chopped firewood. Each log was perfectly cut and arranged. The ends were still sticky with sap, and some were dusted with fresh sawdust. Eli ran a hand across the top. "This is recent. Whoever cut this had seriously sharp tools." We figured the rental company had stocked it before we arrived. Inside, the cabin was just as described. Warm, rustic, maybe a little heavy on the hunting lodge decor, but clean. There was a big stone fireplace, a few old bookshelves, and a writing desk facing the lake, which I claimed immediately. I called the property manager to thank him for the firewood. His name was Troy, and he sounded confused. "I didn't send anyone out. We haven't had guests since May. You sure it's new?" I looked out the window. "Still smells like fresh-cut pine." "There's no staff nearby," he said. "Closest property we maintain is 4 miles away." It gave me pause, but I brushed it off. Maybe a friendly neighbor dropped it off. Small towns are weirdly generous sometimes. That evening, we settled in, took a walk to the dock, made a simple dinner, and curled up by the fire afterward. No phones, no TV, just some music and a few worn paperbacks. Around 11:30, we heard footsteps, crunching across the gravel, steady, calm, not rushed, not sneaky, just walking. Eli got up and peeked through the curtain. I whispered, "See anything?" He shook his head. "Could be an animal." Then we heard it again, this time on the side of the cabin. Crunch, pause, drag. I turned off the lights. We both stood still, breathing quietly. Eli slipped on his boots, grabbed the flashlight, and stepped outside. I watched nervously through the window. 10 minutes later, he came back in. No one, no prints, just gravel. We tried to laugh it off. The next morning, I stepped outside with coffee and nearly spilled it. A second stack of firewood was sitting next to the first. It was smaller, but just as neat. Same kind of wood, same clean cuts, same sap. "Eli," I called. He stepped outside and froze. "That wasn't there last night." "Nope." We stood there a long time, both thinking the same thing but not saying it. Someone had been close enough to stack wood just feet from us, without us hearing. Still, we tried to rationalize it. Maybe Troy had been mistaken. Maybe this was just some strange mountain tradition. Maybe we were overreacting. We decided to go about our day as planned. Took a hike, ate lunch by the lake, joked about our mystery woodsman, maybe leaving us snacks next time. It helped, for a while. That night, just after midnight, we heard it again. Crunch, pause, then far off, a dull thunk. Eli looked at me. "That's an axe." We stayed up the rest of the night, lights on. Eli sat on the porch with the fire poker. I kept watch from inside. We didn't see anything, but in the morning, a third stack of wood was waiting. Closer this time, just a foot from the bottom step. I called Troy again. He said he'd get in touch with the sheriff. An hour later, a deputy named Nolan pulled up the gravel drive. He walked the perimeter, checked the woods, then came inside. You didn't see anyone? Nope. Tracks? Just gravel, Eli said. The deputy nodded slowly. There used to be a guy out here. Lived off-grid, chopped his own wood. Didn't speak much. Disappeared a few years ago. Thought he moved on. Thought? I asked. He shrugged. Just, if anything else weird happens, give us a call. We debated leaving right then, but Eli insisted we stay one more night, see if anything else happened. Maybe whoever it was done. We tried to act normal, cooked dinner, played cards, but neither of us slept. Around 3 a.m., I heard something soft, like breathing, right outside the bedroom window. I pulled back the curtain. Nothing. But I didn't sleep again after that. In the morning, there were no new stacks, just the same 3. We started packing. That's when Eli noticed one of his gloves was missing. We'd left them both by the front door. An hour later, I found it, tucked neatly between the top 2 logs of the newest stack. It was damp, cold, smelled like pine. We didn't say a word, just packed the rest of our things and left without cleaning up. I texted Troy to let him know we were checking out early. I never told him why. It's been weeks now, and we've done our best to forget it. Told ourselves it was just a strange local, or a caretaker who didn't realize the cabin was in use. But still, I wonder. Whoever stacked those logs had been close enough to leave something behind, and quiet enough that we never saw them.